Welcome to another edition of Chops and Pops. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to us on this wonderful platform of YouTube. I am Andy.
And I'm Shane, and we actually have our first guest on the show this week.
This is VINNY CENZO checking in. Thank you guys for having me.
Yep. And before we get started, I guess I'll kind of explain what we're going to do here. We're lucky enough to have Vinny here, and we're going to kind of separate the episode into two. So this first part is going to be really what we do normally every week, where we talk about everything that's been going on in the news of wrestling. And then part two will be where we kind of ask you everything we want to ask about your career and working in the business and all that stuff that we don't know and we don't understand.
Very good.
Very nice. So,
but there is a lot
there
of
is
news.
so much going on in the
jabroni beating. Wow!
which is so much more fun than just saying the news. So, Shane, what have you got for us?
I have a lot. First place I'd probably start is Monday Night Raw, because it was one of the better episodes, at least a lot of people think so, that they've done in quite a while for a number of reasons. On the flip side of that, they got very low ratings
Very low
for that
ratings.
episode.
Something like one of the worst up against sports or an event since 1998 or something like that.
Really? It was that bad? I didn't even think it was that bad.
It was
What
that
were they
bad.
in competition with Monday night? Did it say anything?
It was the NBA playoffs and Love and Hip Hop, which I know is always it's always been on Monday nights, and I know Love and Hip Hop always gets number one when they have like a new season going. So there's that. But
I didn't realize Love and Hip Hop was that popular.
I guess. But the other thing to bring up, besides dissecting what actually happened on Monday Night Raw, was Vince Russo decided to speak up and voice his opinion on why he thought it was crappy and why they got low ratings. So two of the big factors of what he blamed is he doesn't think Seth Rollins is a draw, and he thinks that while people like us who love Sami Zayn and we're excited to see him finally debut, he doesn't see him as a star. So he blamed basically Sami Zayn and Seth Rollins for the low ratings, which take however you want. Actually, to ask you, are you a Sami Zayn fan, or do you?
I am a huge Sami Zayn fan. Clearly from his time back in the Indies all the way till working up. It's upsetting because I really feel like Vince Russo is a guy who's, I don't want to tag it to him, but I think on more things than not, he's out of touch when it comes to those things.
So do I.
Yeah.
Especially for a guy, if you look back, history speaking, a guy who dictated stars' path, in their career standpoint in the Attitude Era and helped them grow, in all aspects. Because, he was very keen and a big part of their development, not just in-ring and storyline-wise. He was very big. He oversaw a lot of their promos, their video packages, and things like that. So for him to dictate television-wise that he's not a draw, and more so Seth Rollins, how long has Seth Rollins been on TV now for? It's way too early to call that.
Right. And I don't think he really takes credit. Well, I mean, he is champion, so I mean, he should take credit for, leading the company and everything. But to me, it's also 1 week. So, when ratings are up, do you give credit to Seth Rollins? But bringing up Vince Russo, the one thing I want to ask you, especially for you kind of putting it that way, you seem to give him credit. And the one thing that it's also hard being a fan giving this sort of critique, but do you ever think he takes too much credit for the Attitude Era? Because I do think being somebody on the outside who obviously didn't work in the business then and doesn't work in the business now, I don't know for sure how much input he had. But I've never been a Vince Russo fan, and I know that the guy has probably come up with some genius ideas at times, but I also feel like you could have had almost anybody in there, and The Rock is The Rock. He's pulling in millions and millions of dollars making movies now. Stone Cold was Stone Cold, and even if he had writers, I feel like it was him as a person, his charisma that helped create the star that he was. Do you ever think now that Russo takes too much credit, or do you think he deserves?
Oh, absolutely.
the credit?
I think it became a personal thing from the standpoint. Looking back, and clearly, because I wasn't a television star back then, as much as I would love to have been.
Right?
Part of that
Don't we all?
generation. I look at it, and if you step outside the box and you look at WWE versus WCW, and look how many changes in creative they had during that standpoint in trying to compete, and there's that age-old thing where WWF is a wrestling show that happens to be on a TV channel, and Nitro was a television show that happened to feature wrestling. I feel like, and I'm glad you brought up Stone Cold and The Rock, I feel like Russo really started to harbor his negative feelings and a lot of the asinine things that he came up with once he started to see that guys like The Rock and Stone Cold were really cutting it out on their own and moving beyond the things that he threw at them, whether it be the Ringmaster or just Rocky in general. Kind of thing.
That's what I think I kind of like label him as, is like, yes, he was around during one of, if not the most successful time in wrestling, but I also feel like his style, his like flavor of writing was really just like that shock value TV that was popular back then with like Jerry Springer and all that, that I feel like once he went to WCW, that came out more, so you saw more of what he was contributing, where I feel like but that's like a whole thing, but like, yeah, I mean, I understand the idea of you have to see it for a TV show, like you said, like it's entertainment, like people who love it for its wrestling, that's not what really sells. If that was the case, amateur wrestling would be huge and popular, and but I just, like, even seeing it for that, I just feel like he was too always focused on the like shock value TV.
Absolutely, and shock value TV is great, and it will draw, but on the other end of it too, it's like you said, I really feel like Vince Russo incorporated too much shock value into one television program. Yeah. And that's going to push viewers away.
Right. Well, to bring it back to Monday Night, did you see Monday Night Raw this past week?
Bits and pieces. I did not see the whole thing, unfortunately.
Yeah. What did you like about it? What was
Monday Night Raw?
Yeah.
What did I like about Monday Night Raw?
Oh, you didn't like it? You weren't a fan?
It was good. It just, I watch on Hulu, they do the hour-and-a-half version of Raw, where they kind of cut out all the backstage segments, and they cut out a lot of, like, the storyline elements. It's a lot of wrestling. It's mostly wrestling, and then some, like, random, like, intro stuff. I liked it. I thought it was funny with Bret Hart, and he's, like, a great wrestler, and then Heath Slater comes out, and I'm like, alright, that's gonna... and I kind of wanted to see Bret Hart fight John Cena, even though he could barely walk to the ring.
Yeah.
But, it was nice seeing Sami Zayn there, but, man, that shoulder. There's another one that I'm not going to be able to watch for a while now, and I'm just getting so bitter about my favorite wrestlers getting hurt.
I'd be lying if I didn't say I kind of thought it for at least a second, but a lot of people were actually talking about the chance that it was actually a work.
I'm hoping.
That he was just selling it.
That's what I had heard, and I kind of thought for the 2 days, and I thought, and I was excited because I was like, this is really going to be good, pushing it into an angle with Kevin Owens, moving it forward. Sami's at a mega disadvantage now. It's even, going to be harder, from a fan standpoint for him to get that title, but it's just shitty luck, unfortunately, for him and Danielson. It's come back, and ride the wave of momentum, and right out from underneath you.
Yeah.
And truthfully, it was actually a picture that, like, obviously I saw what happened and I saw the video, but there was a still frame shot of one of the times he was just, like, kneeling on the ring, and you saw it, like, you could actually see the dislocation by the shoulder, like ugly. The skin almost hanging, like, underneath the surface, and that's when I was fully, like, I just knew it wasn't a word, like, this guy had just unfortunate luck.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I did read a report somewhere else, too, that like I said, I was bits and pieces. He had separated, or something happened on his actual entrance when he came out.
Yeah, it was before the match.
It was right before the match started. Yeah.
He went to hype the crowd up and just.
Yeah, I had to go back to rewatch it to actually see where it happened, but you can totally tell it was. He walks down to the ring, he goes up on the ring steps, and it's when he's pumping up his arms to like get the crowd into it.
That'll teach him to be a babyface.
And he just right away he just kind of does that like. Oh crap! Like, and you can even see he tries like stretching it on the ropes before the match starts, and he tries to not make it that obvious, and it's just bad luck.
It really is. I myself, I just got over a pretty solid sprain in my back of my shoulder and into my neck kind of thing, and just been bad nerves going on, and with their wellness policy and things like that, and it's not the 80s, so you can't self-medicate anymore.
Yeah.
It's a real shame, because there's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. Once something happens to you, there's no time anymore for you to let it nag, for you to let it carry or tough it out. It's you just go in there and. If you're done, you're done. And especially I don't know if you guys had a podcast recently about CM Punk and after the departure and bragging up on the doctors.
Well,
There's no room for error anymore.
Yeah. Right. And you bring up an interesting point of just the way the past used to be, and you kind of wonder like who would be pushing through stuff right now, or who like even with the help of self-medication would be able to keep going. You know what I mean? In this type of it's just
Well, Daniel Bryan would still be out.
Well, yeah, he would have to just kind of do what he's doing, I guess.
Poor guy.
But besides Raw, the other stuff I have was 2 major documentaries came out. It was either on the same day or it was Tuesday and Wednesday.
I think the ESPN one's on Tuesday.
Yeah, well, ESPN did the E60 documentary where they did behind-the-scenes biographies on, it was Adam Rose, Xavier Woods.
And Corey Graves. And then
WWE had their own documentary that they released on Roman Reigns.
The Beyond the Ring one?
Yeah, where they basically followed his journey to
Or was it the
WrestleMania.
24-hour one?
I think it's WWE
24?
24, but it's just basically his whole time in San Francisco leading up to Mania. Both were really well done for what they are. Obviously, the Roman Reigns one was WWE-oriented with their whole narrative on things, where the ESPN...
They are so good at that, though. They make you really care.
They understand how important it is to be the one with the narrative, because that's the story everyone ends up hearing, you know? But then the ESPN one was interesting because WWE had no say in what the final product ended up being, and you got to see a whole different side to some of those guys. Did you happen to see it?
Yeah, I did not see the Roman Reigns one, but I did see the ESPN one, and I was pretty captivated. I was pretty interested into it, especially more so the Corey Graves. I'm a big fan of Corey Graves. I would even say more so than Sami Zayn. I used to watch Corey Graves back into the Indies from his time as Sterling James Keenan. With
See, I didn't follow that.
Yeah,
Wow.
he was an exceptional indie star. Big in the Pittsburgh area for International Wrestling Cartel, and he kind of got his name out to a few other places, but he stayed primarily in the Pittsburgh, New Jersey area. So it's, given what happened to him, it makes me happy to see that he still has a spot, kind of thing. Because there's not a lot of guys that get that opportunity. You see it over time where, just Rey Mysterio, for example, the poor guy's put how much money into his knees, and he's still wrestling after the point, and then, talk about an injury is one thing, and then a guy dying in the ring next to you is something completely different.
I didn't even know that for injuries you could do it. Like, I don't even know all the specifics, but he was using stem cells to regenerate his kneecap.
Ooh.
Like, that's when you gotta realize, like, you're in some bad shape. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But,
well, I believe, in my personal opinion, half of it's a pride issue, and the other half is it's just stuff that's out of your hands. Guys like Ray, guys like Super Crazy, guys like Terry Funk. If, we know what we get into when we sign up for this, and it's not going to be ballet. If you're going to, and I'm not calling them stupid in any way, shape, or form, but if you're going to be sticking with moves that are going to keep causing crucial damage to those body parts, your moonsaults, or, whatever it may be, like, you can't cry wolf, when these things happen.
Right, and you probably understand more than us that, you can choose your work rate in the sense that in the end you're basically just telling a story, and you can work around those things and find
absolutely.
maneuvers that will make your career longer. And that's something I think about with everybody, of just there's little simple things that tons of workers that I think could alter just one or two things here, and wouldn't you want your career to be 30 years longer as opposed to 20 years longer, or even less? You know
Absolutely,
what I mean?
and not to get too off topic, and I know we're going to discuss more of my work-oriented and stuff in the second part of this, but like I said, I like TV. I love TV a lot. No matter what people say about their opinions on TNA or Lucha Underground or whatever you watch, you see these things and you watch it happen to these guys, and it becomes a real bummer. Like, and if you watch, are you guys familiar with PWG?
Oh, I
Pro
am.
Wrestling Guerrilla.
I was supposed to go when I went to WrestleMania, and I couldn't stay the extra 3 days, and it killed me because I know how hard tickets are to get to that. And we actually had that sound effect. And
We did.
It's,
I used to have a keyboard set up just so I could do those 3 notes.
Nice, glad I
But
could be
I
his
just stopped. It was just too much for that.
yeah, but I love PWG.
Yeah, but like, and the thing I'm getting to it, like with Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, you know, amazingly talented performers. Your Ricochets, your Trevor Lees, your Samurai Del Sol before he got signed, AR Fox. When you do these maneuvers, number one, the repetition is what kills a fan base. If you do a double moonsault, you know, what can you follow up with that next? Are you
Right,
gonna
like you've
break
set
your
the
neck?
bar that
Yeah.
high
Yeah.
already.
And you know, and I'm not, and I get it. Like we watch the videos and that's cool, but you know, people get tired of repetition. You know, month to month. You know, it's like one of those things. So it stinks because people don't see this end of it. They have to fluctuate guys in and out because you can't follow what the other person just did.
Yeah. No, even as a fan, that's something I've noticed about PWG is that there are these spots in these matches that are some of the most, especially in the small space that they're working in and that hall that they always hold their events in, that it's some of the craziest stuff you could ever see guys do. But even still, sometimes you get bored halfway through, which is crazy
and
because
it's
of
sad.
what they're doing, but it's because the bar has been set that high that you're expecting so much more. Where if anybody was pulling that off on any other show, your mind would be blown.
Oh, absolutely, and it pops me till I'm blue in the face. I love
Yeah.
Trevor Lee's one of the big ones now, and he does a lot of the shows around me in this area. He's just starting to get in the Northeast. He throws these kicks from the apron.
It's incredible.
That it's dangerous. If it was a hair off, your nose is.
Well, did you hear about AR Fox? It was only like, I want to say 2 months ago. He recovered pretty quick, so it wasn't that bad. But it was an Evolve show down in Florida. I want to say it was like February.
That's right. And Trevor Lee it was in a match with Trevor Lee, wasn't it? And Trevor Lee got banned from Evolve, kind of thing.
Well, no, I think Evolve is still booking it. I could be wrong about that, but he did that kick that you're talking about off the ring apron. AR Fox didn't have time to block it, and he not only gave him a concussion, but he knocked out some of his teeth.
Ooh.
And at first, it was all live, so you could actually see how out of it Fox was, and it was scary. And their initial reaction to it was they thought he was going to be out for a while. He ended up coming back within like a month's time, but it was brutal to watch. Trevor Lee can kick the hell out of you.
Yeah, and you know, and I love watching these guys. Like I said, it pops me till I'm blue in the face. But like I think on the other end of it, as great as PWG is, you know, there's actors that even go there to watch them. Sometimes I've seen things, but like what it does, I think, in another aspect, is it kills off professional wrestling from, you know, a spectation standpoint. Like when I watch it, I can't dictate who's babyface and who's heel at all.
That's true.
And it, you know, I think that yes, there's kayfabe's dead, blah 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 blah, but there still should be some aspect. If you're a heel and you're doing that stuff at the same time, like that's like Killer Instinct stuff. And if you're a babyface and do that, like that makes you, it helps you grow. But, you know, I guess that's just my 2 cents on it.
No, I agree with you because I also see the way that WWE is kind of getting to that point where they're pulling the curtains and just showing, you know, who these people are in real life. And if I'm kind of understanding what you're saying, it's that, you know, it's okay to kind of break kayfabe and show these people in real life, but once you're in the ring working, you have to dedicate yourself to that character and, you know, fulfill the story.
Yeah,
you know?
because it's, you know, they didn't want you to see you as, you know, what's Adam Rose? I don't remember his real name.
I don't either. They did say it on the show. You remember? No? Yeah.
But they watched him to see him be Adam Rose, whether face or heel. They didn't, you know, watch it for him to be Joe Schmo, you know, guy who, that's great, you made your career, but, well, you're at the show now, give us the show.
Right. But also, to bring it back to the ESPN documentary, the one thing I think is kind of interesting where now that this is, you know, the first time that they're really crossing those lines, it's kind of interesting because, again, I don't work in the business, I don't fully understand things, but one thing I kind of do know is that you want your babyface to have sympathy. That sympathy is a big part to, you know, getting that reaction from the crowd. And it's kind of weird to me because he has to dedicate himself to being that character, you know, the rock star that parties with everybody. But people have seen this ESPN documentary now, and people are going to have sympathy for him for what, you know, he has to go through with his child.
Yeah.
and he's going to get that reaction from the crowd, but that's him in real life, and it's just weird how the lines get blurred.
And that's what's the crazy thing about that, and it's like you said, you seldom see it because ESPN had final dictation on what was going to be aired, and I think stuff like that probably burns Vince McMahon's asshole.
Right.
Because like you said, now this guy's going to go out, and he had a hard time getting over as a babyface, as it was, and now they aired this, and he was I guess you could say he's just about over being a tweener, and it would be more on the heel end of things where he was, and. Like you've essentially you've invested money because there is money invested in this guy, and now you've rendered him useless. I feel like,
Yeah. How did you feel about how they showed him as a person?
I felt terrible for him
Right.
as a person, and I don't know. I still don't like Adam Rose. I don't
You
think
still don't?
I've never liked Adam Rose. I never.
Right.
I think the gimmick was late. If it was the Attitude Era and the Exotic Express was in the Attitude Era, that would have been so cool because it would have been so over the top because it wouldn't have been like Russell Brand Rockstar. It would have been like Vince Neil Motley Crue Rockstar with like the chicks on the bus, and like the X-rated and the censor bars and stuff. And that would have been cool. That I would have liked.
I never thought of it that way, but that's.
I mean, we
that's
got a bunny.
Yeah.
We got his biggest feud was with a bunny.
Right,
And
right,
in his own
right.
like entourage. That sucks.
and that's a shame too because there's talented guys that could be on television in that spot, but it goes like you said to a dude in a bunny costume.
Yeah,
So-
guy in a bunny costume.
I'm still so curious of which guys got stuck under that bunny costume because I've heard rumors of like a handful of guys, and we'll just never know, like who had to deal with that.
I know for at least one fight it was Zack Ryder because they were showing like comparisons of Zack Ryder's moves and the bunny, and they were the same. So it was poor Zack Ryder.
Well, I guess if you guys don't have anything else to add to that, in other news, it's not really news, but Impact Wrestling was live this past week, which is a rare thing that they do now. Not only do they tape their episodes, but they can tape for like up to 6 to 8 weeks at a time.
Oh wow.
So that was kind of interesting. The takeaways from that was that, the tag team title situation was the interesting thing because first Eddie Edwards was injured and they had to vacate the titles. Then Jeff Hardy crashed on a motorbike and he had to vacate the titles. So their solution to it this week was the Hardys vacated it, and now there's going to be a best-of-5 series between the Wolves and the Dirty Heels, which is Austin Aries and Bobby Roode. I love all those guys, and especially since you follow indie wrestling more, how do you feel about like the Wolves or Austin Aries or?
Oh, incredibly happy that they're on television. They're getting the shine that they deserve. I'm glad that they've. I want to say I was skeptical at first. Rewind how many months ago when they had the feud going with the Dudleys and the Hardys.
That triple threat thing? Yeah.
I was skeptical. I was like, if they're really going to bill it under the TLC category and throw these guys in there, and I'm not knocking because clearly I'm the same height as Davey Richards. It's one of those things where I didn't feel like they were going to mesh, and I felt like it was going to just fall on deaf ears, and there was going to be charisma on one end, and then there was going to be the Wolves. But I really feel like it translated well. I think they've done exceptional work on TV. It is a shame that these injuries happen, but I don't know. I guess it's one of those things. Like I said, along the same lines of Seth Rollins. As far as their TV exposure, because it's such a different animal. Even with Ring of Honor, and I understand Ring of Honor is on it is on platforms on television. It's a different animal when you're feeding to an audience and you constantly have somebody in your ears telling you, what to do while you're in the ring. And guys like Davey and Eddie, they're so incredibly naturally talented. When somebody's telling you to, flip your game mid-match, it kind of throws you for a loop,
Yeah, no, they're very talented. And that triple threat thing that they did with the Dudleys and the Hardys, it was... I think some matches were better than others. I forget how many they did. It was somewhere between like 3 and 5. Like one was a ladder match, one was TLC, one was just a tables match, and I think it was the ladder match that I enjoyed the most. But I see what you're saying about how putting them in that different environment when they're just organically good at what they do.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, they are. They're incredibly talented guys, and height difference does play in a lot, but it's really hard to go in there, especially when you're going with teams who add charisma. I mean, Dudley's and Hardy's were, for God, how many years together? I mean, specifically with each other. It's a tough glass to drink, and I think they did exceptionally well for it.
Yeah. Besides that, the other stuff that happened on Impact was Bully Ray returned with his real-life girlfriend, Velvet Sky. MVP dropped the N-bomb.
Oh.
You guys didn't see Impact, right?
No.
I was the only one who watched it.
I did see the video of that. He was. I want to say it's one of those things that, just judging from the video that I saw, because I didn't see Impact as a whole, I really feel it's just making light of the Baltimore and all the stuff that's going on. And I think, that's just as cheeky as shitty Vince Russo TV. You know what I mean? It's just bad shock value. Like, why would you do that? Like, that wrestling has nothing to do with anything going on in Baltimore. And for a guy like MVP, who I really feel, minus to the exception of them just bringing it up here and there, does not need to do anything felon-related. He's so much more over as a babyface, in my opinion, that, like,
You think so? Because I do like the BDC. I do kind of like them as a stable. I don't think all the stables in TNA are exactly right, but I thought the BDC was kind of at least on the right point of putting the right guys together,
Yeah, like, and this is where, it's one of those things where I really try to separate myself and try to appreciate TV. Now, I was working for JAP, for their relaunch, Jersey All Pro Wrestling, and Beatdown Clan came. It was MVP was there, and Joe were in the corner. MVP, Joe, and Homicide were in the corner of Loki, while Team Pazuzu was in the corner of Chris Dickinson for the singles match. And MVP was just doing, satire comedy the entire time. And there was another thing that they did with Teddy Hart, and
he's still around. I haven't heard that name get brought up in a while.
Yes, Teddy Hart is still around. He let his cat loose in the arena. Necro Butcher walks out with his cat at the beginning of the show and lets it loose in the arena. And
like his actual house
the actual cat. Yeah, the cat that he flips around and does all that stuff with.
I'm not even aware of this.
Oh, Teddy. Yeah. Oh, so, let's just.
Fill me in on this. This is interesting.
So Teddy Hart's thing now is he wants to incorporate cats into professional wrestling, and he taught,
such a heart.
He's out there, man. He throws his cat. His cat is trained. He throws it in the air and makes it moonsault and catches it. Walks to the ring doing this. Brings the cat into the ring for spots. It's ridiculous.
This is blowing my mind right now.
Yeah, and it's Teddy. It'll be one thing. He'll be rambling about Jesus 1 minute, and the next minute, I'm sorry, I cussed a few times. You guys could.
We don't care.
You know, good dirty motherfucker. I'll kick your. I'm Hart family. This and that. Yeah. So we were running late. We were trying to get the JAP show to start on time. All the wrestlers showing up and everything. And Necro Butcher walks out with Teddy's cat. Necro was, we'll just say, underneath the elements. And he's just, goofing around the cat, petting the cat. Cat jumps out of Necro's arms and is scattering around the arena as fans are coming in. It was hysterical watching wrestlers and staff trying to catch this cat.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
You informed me. I had no idea that. That just.
Yeah, but going back to where we were, MVP. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I really view him more as a face, and in my opinion, Matt Hardy, and I know it's almost ancient history now for him, really elevated his game. I think Matt Hardy.
I love
being
that feud. The Matt
face,
Hardy MVP feud.
Yeah, I think he essentially pushed him in becoming a tweener and a babyface from that feud, because people were those segments that they would do with the boxing or whatever else that they had done.
I think they played basketball.
Basketball,
once.
yeah. It made me appreciate if you think back to Mr. Perfect and Vigness like that. Now, granted, it wasn't a feud, but like, oh my God, and, it was like I remember stuff like this growing up when
The only other thing with Impact was, and this wasn't even from the show, was I heard Chris Hero was backstage, which is interesting because originally when I heard him getting fired from NXT, he didn't want to associate himself at all with TNA because he wanted to always leave the door open for coming back to the WWE, and he thought that would just be like the fork in it. Like they would never have him back if he was working for TNA. Like it's fine to bounce around to the indies, but TNA is like the absolute no-no. So I thought that was kind of interesting because I don't think it necessarily would be bad for him. I feel like it could be a good fit. I don't know. I think mainly that just because I don't think of TNA as negatively as most people, And I also think Chris Hero has done so much on the indies that it's almost getting to a point where what is there left to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think too one of the other ends of it is, he left, and then there was all the speculation whether it was over Wade or whether it was over this and that. I don't think TNA would be a bad option for him either. But just gathering from the times I've talked to him since leaving, there's a whole new world of indie stars for him to work with, and I think he's actually excited about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I know he just finished the Global League in Japan with Colt, and they're doing that, and I know he's still has a bunch of indie appearances, but I think it would be nice to see him, on television for a regular basis, because the guys work so goddamn hard to, earn
Really?
it.
Yeah. And again, it's been as a fan. I've met him twice, and he's one of the nicest guys on the planet.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think very highly of him.
Very funny guy, too.
Yeah.
Very funny.
The next thing I have listed is kind of sad, but I know you've heard about it, and I don't want to drag the show down, but it's definitely something that needs to be brought up. It also happened in New Jersey. I don't know if you've heard of this, Vinny. The tragedy of the 18-month-old baby. Did you not hear about this?
Where the guys killed his girlfriend's baby doing wrestling holds?
Well,
I
think he was the father, too, but she was
was
at
he?
work. He's 20 years old. The baby was 18 months old, and he was performing maneuvers that the two moves that came out that he said he did, one was the rock bottom, and the one that injured the baby, he was doing the Undertaker's last ride, power bomb. I don't know how stupid you have to be.
Yeah. Just speaking from, if I'm talking too much, guys, I don't know, cutting you guys off either. Speaking from a parent perspective,
Yeah, that's
I goof around with my kid. My son Rocco. I don't really do too much with my daughter. She's, she likes wrestling, but she likes to goof around with her brother. She doesn't, she's not too big into do moves or anything like that. But just knowing, what could go wrong on just a headlock. I've seen guys strain their necks, like hairline fractures on just a headlock. So this guy either had mental illness or had no common sense whatsoever. There's absolutely no reason that anybody, in my opinion, anybody under the age of 18 should be replicating wrestling moves. 16 if you got a great head on your shoulders and you have people that can vouch for you that you're able to train and do moves.
And it's interesting you bring up the thing about the headlocks, because that was another death that happened a few years back. I remember this because it was the night of WrestleMania 28. Somebody was wrestling around in their living room, and it was during Jericho Punk. They put him in a headlock, didn't realize they were legitimately passed out, and they just ended up dying from the loss of oxygen to the brain, because by the time that they actually knew something was wrong and treated him, they probably could have saved his life, but because they knew nothing was wrong, something as simple as that, something that awful can happen.
Ooh.
That's an interesting perspective, though, because that's the thing. You're a father.
It's sad, and I get it. Absolutely, accidents happen. Several years ago, there was two kids just doing wrestling moves, and it's one thing, to goof around and be playful and have an accident happen.
Exactly.
But if you're a 20-year-old and you have an 18-year-old month baby in your hands,
and a power bomb where you're you're literally throwing them.
Are you fucking stupid?
Right,
there's no justification at all. Even if it's on it's landing is one thing that even myself as an indie worker, I know that there are times when my body knows the routine, which way we were going, and it doesn't always happen the way you expect it. You don't rule gravity; gravity rules us.
Right.
No, gravity is very finicky.
Do you have anything to add as far as that horrible situation?
No, that's just so stupid. It's so dumb. There's just...
And the one thing we didn't kind of cover, which I think just kind of goes without saying, at least for us at this table, but for anybody listening, just to make this clear, obviously wrestling isn't to blame for something like this. That's the given. They obviously go out of their way to tell you to never try this at home, but I think anybody with a head on their shoulders understands, what type of danger you would actually put somebody in doing anything like that. So it's definitely not on the WWE shoulders, that's for sure.
No, and it's a shame because, they're going to have, what's that lady's name? She has such a hard-on for WWE anytime something bad happens. She has a TV show.
Oh, Nancy Grace?
Nancy Grace,
She's
yeah.
terrible.
Screw
And I'm
that
sure
woman.
there's going to be a special in the next month, and it's going to be sad. And that's the other end of it, too, is, like, if you really do love wrestling and if the guy was a fan or whatever, you wouldn't, like, you would, especially with a baby. It's just common sense.
Yeah. It's not exactly brightening up the mood, but just on the topic of sad injuries, it's not even nearly the same in terms of tragedy, but Hideo Itami ended up in the news for saying that he could be out for as long as 6 to 8 months for, ironically, the same thing Sami Zayn would be out for, a shoulder injury. I don't know the extent of it, but that's basically all I've got, is that it's going to be 6 to 8 months and no more Hideo Itami for a while.
Really just throwing wrenches into the next NXT pay-per-view. Just really.
Yeah, you gotta. I look at it like this. I see these guys, WWE. I guess I'm assuming once Triple H took over, and they signed this incredible amount of talent. They signed Sami Callihan, El Generico, Moxley. I'm throwing their indie names out.
Right,
from that
just
perspective.
they
Moxley,
got the best of the
Callihan,
best.
Chris Hero, Brody Lee. It became super competitive. It went from bodybuilders and models and a few indie guys scattered to this insanely amount of talented indie guys.
Yep.
And you got to look at it from a perspective like, okay, and you heard some of the main roster wrestlers complaining, oh, well, so-and-so gets, these guys get 20 minutes on NXT. We hardly go out there and get 3.
That was the
This is
argument,
ridiculous. So you got to think about guys like Kenta, guys like Sami, and they're getting primed, they're getting pushed, they're going out there. Triple H, give it all you got, kid. Give them a show. I think there's that urgency. Maybe, I'm not saying these guys aren't smart, but that urgency to make sure that when they get these single chances to with Bret Hart and John Cena Open Challenge or the Lucha Dragons getting on Raw, sometimes you get ahead of yourself, and maybe you don't know your own limits. Maybe it's an accident, but it's just you got to be careful. But the competition level right now, because yes, there is teamwork, and yes, you take care of the other person, but the competition level now right there has got to be insane.
And it's interesting because I feel like it's kind of a blanket statement. Not everybody says this, but I feel like just because they're the PG version of WWE, everyone overlooks that fact. Over just the past 5 years, like you said, they've acquired so much of the best indie talent in the world, and the work rate has definitely gone up, regardless of the fact that they're PG.
Yeah.
And I think it's a big part of what you're saying is that people are making the most of their opportunity when they only get that one chance,
And it's crazy because, some of these guys are even, like we spoke about earlier, toning down their moveset, learning what works with psychology, learning what works to wrestle for a hard cam when you have 70,000 people around you, and then you have how many million viewers at home.
Which is a big difference. I remember even Prince Devitt, Finn Balor, was talking about that, of how, that guy, he was wrestling in the Tokyo Dome. He was in front of tens of thousands of people. But he said even just going to somewhere like NXT, simple things like the hard cam he wasn't even aware of, because they don't think of it that way in terms of production. He was just worried about what he was doing in the ring, And now he's one of the best entertainers they have of, the show he puts on.
Yeah, and that's where I really do hope, if it is a sense of urgency for these guys, especially because some of them have been my peers at one point. I do hope that they take that in, because there's this age-old psychology thing. Guys like Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan didn't make their money being athletic, clearly.
Right.
Guys like Finn Balor are starting to understand this, that Ric Flair made his money by coming out to the ring going woo. Finn Balor's
and
making
fancy
his,
robes.
Yeah, and fancy robes, and Hogan with his ridiculous earwave. Finn Balor, I feel like, is one of these guys that understands that. Yes, he incorporates a lot of that, more high-risk moveset, but he realizes, I don't have to put face paint on every time, but when I do put it on for a special, or when I do this entrance, dude, they're captivated. I have them.
And even something like doing all the high high moves that he does, I still feel like it's just a style that fits his character.
Yeah.
Like even something simple like him lifting himself on the top turnbuckle whenever he makes his entrance, like he's paying attention to all that. So even when he is doing those crazy athletic moves, it's still to fit a character. And
exactly, and that's the other aspect of it too, is these guys are finding out who they are on the indies may not necessarily translate to who they're going to be on TV.
And it hasn't for the most part for a lot of guys. That even the best, look, even Seth Rollins, like he has always been one of the best, athletic athletes that they have. But Seth Rollins isn't the same guy Tyler Black was.
Exactly. That's why I still don't understand. So many fans, and it boggles my mind to this day, still get so butthurt. Oh, why are they changing his name? Oh, why are they cutting this? Why are they cutting that? Dude, if anything, you should be supportive. Wow, this guy's making a much healthier paycheck.
Yep.
This guy is toning down, making himself safe. He's putting great food on dinner for his family. You know what I mean?
Yep.
He's made it to that level. So, like, I feel like there needs to be, on a fan aspect, more understanding, kind of.
And actually, bringing up the butthurt part, I totally understand what you're saying, and I've felt that way about everybody of, like, you know what? I call him Tyler Black forever. He's Seth Rollins now. John Moxley, I thought was perfect, but you know what? The name Dean Ambrose is perfect.
Yeah.
But I will admit I got butthurt when Kenta had to be Hideo Itami. I love Kenta so much.
And then for me, that one's weird. But for me, Chris Hero, I was like, where the
Cassius
fuck did
Ohno?
they get Cassius Ohno from, dude? I was like, I'm not being racist, but I mean, it sounds like a Chinese name. Dude's not Chinese.
The only thing I picked up from it was
the KO.
the initials, But, it's just sad. I like Kenta Hideo Itami, whatever you want to call him. He's great. And I'm going to miss him.
Oh, my God. I don't know if you guys covered this. Takeshi Morishima just retired recently.
I just covered that last week.
Heartbroken. Me too. It's talk about I don't know that I've ever seen, maybe with the exception of Shawn Michaels' Bret Hart Iron Man match and Carino and Homicide with the barbed wire match that I think was Boston.
I don't even know that.
I think the one was Boston. Carino and Homicide always had solid intensity, and they honestly do hate each other in real life.
Do they really?
Yeah. But Tyler,
not to cut you off.
You're good.
Just because you brought that up, I need to ask you if you know anything on the inside. Does Carino and BJ Whitmer really hate each other, or is that all work in Ring of Honor?
I don't.
Not sure.
I'm not positive.
Okay. That one just always bugged me. I'm like, they really look like they want to kill each other, but I feel like this is all for a storyline. But they're not creating a storyline, and they're not having any matches.
I don't know anything along those lines.
Yeah, that's fine.
But they're two exceptionally talented performers that they could
totally.
make you think that, or
Exactly.
they could really have.
That's why I bought it.
But Kenta and Morishima, man, talk about intensity in a match. I mean, I'm very partial to the guys my size with the Napoleon complex that, I don't care how small I am. I don't care if I'm not as buff as you. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to kick your ass. I don't care if you're 6'5", 300 pounds. Kenta always brought that. But I always felt like when he was in there with Morishima, there was just more to it. Mm-hmm. And it's such a bummer because, now that Morishima's gone, we're not going to be able to see that again. Unless Joe gets signed. That would be cool. Right.
Yeah. You know what? I don't think that's too far off in the future. But I think the special thing that you're not kind of pinpointing with Kenta and Morishima is just chemistry.
Yeah,
that to me is what it was they were just... Like you yourself brought up Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels of just like there are times where you're going to get a great story and a story's going to get over whatever, but there are just times where two guys they are the peanut butter and jelly. Like they are the two that are meant to work with each other, and I thought Morishima was one of Kenta's greatest opponents. I thought Kenta actually had, not to get too much onto this, but just since we're talking about Hideo Itami, I don't know if you ever saw it. It was one of the last matches he had in Noah, title defense, or maybe... Nagata just won it, but Yuji Nagata had some great matches with Kenta.
I think I know the one you're talking about. How long? It was
it was the beginning of either 2013 or 2014. I remember it was like February, and it was only like a year. No, because he was signed to NXT. I can't remember. But yeah, it was one of the title
I think
matches.
I know which one you're talking about. I have them all saved on my YouTube on my MacBook at home. I got to look.
What's up? 45? Yeah, that's fine. That's the whole point of why we're doing two parts to this, because there's so much to talk about. But that's Hideo Itami. The one thing I didn't really have anything for, and I don't know if you guys heard about this, but Andrew, who's MIA this week, wanted us to bring this up. JTG
released a book.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I know about it.
That's
it.
I have no interest.
Me neither.
Listen, And I'm sure it's going to be one of those things where he's going to. I already saw, the tags of how WWE's racist and how they could be better. Dude, I really feel like he's one of those guys that he flew under their radar. He didn't care, And the guys around his time, Zack Ryder made a YouTube show. Other guys tried different things. I honestly feel like if he had wanted to make an impact, he would have done something different, or he would have been, because anytime you saw JTG, it was the same day JTG.
Yeah.
JTG.
Yeah. I don't really have anything to add about his book.
No, it's
Other than he's just a guy who's frustrated. And like you said, I feel like, yes, I'm not oblivious to when I feel like they are putting some people down when they could be bigger stars than what they are. But I'm kind of on the boss's side of I think people can make more of their opportunity if they tried hard enough.
It's stupidity because if the guy ever wants to go there again now, do you think he has an open door?
Right.
Like with this, it's
Right.
it's ridiculous.
And I think bringing up that point, I think the title of the book was like, why did I write this book? Because he knew he was just like losing opportunities. But yeah, I have a couple more, but I've been stealing all the news. So what do you have on deck, Andy?
a lot of like little stupid things. Kofi on Twitter, a fan asked him why the rest of the members of New Day were blocking him and if he could do something about it. So he promptly blocked him, which was a great move, if you ask me. Spoiler alert, Triple H and Steph to return to Raw. Hey.
I like them.
Yeah.
I'm entertained by them both. I'm not one of those haters that think like, oh, they're powers that be that hold back the good stars. Like, they're entertaining.
You have Bill Simmons got fired over quoting Mick Foley's lack of testicular fortitude.
I knew nothing about that till you brought it
Really?
up. Yeah, I was going to
Yeah.
say, do you watch ESPN? Because I'm not familiar with
Apparently,
Bill
there was a
Simmons,
lot
so-
going on. Like, there were other reasons why they wanted to fire him, but apparently that phrasing was the straw that broke the camel's back and got him fired.
Really, ESPN let him go because of that.
Yeah.
With the amount of stuff that ESPN, that's ridiculous.
And Michelle Beadle still has a job.
Job, yeah.
Yep. But she doesn't have her fan card anymore, so.
Shit. I know, she could be a whole nother episode, like talking about her. But
We have Torito might be joining the Lucha Dragons, which is great because then the Matadors can get Hornswoggle, and then it could be WLC 2, Bull versus Dragon. Awesome. So excited about that.
or what I suggested could happen, they could just fire Los Matadors,
could.
and we could call it a day.
I really feel like if that happens, if Torito does join Lucha Dragons, that would make like an exceptional reverse evolution poster of guys who are tall and kind of lucha, shorter and kind of quicker, and essentially like a speed demon.
That's a good point. Are you a fan of Los Matadors at all? They do absolutely nothing for me. And I'm not trying to like get you in trouble. I don't know everyone you've worked with, but like I feel like the only reason Los Matadors have a job is because Vince is being cool with Carlos Colon and keeping that door open. Otherwise, they
that
would
very
not
well
be
could much
there.
be it, because honestly, Puerto Rico is the only place where Vince would work hand in hand and still send guys there who are under contract. I think it had pizzazz and I think it had flair to it when they first put them on TV. I think that went out, maybe 2 months after that. I think and don't get me wrong, because I just shot down JTG stupidity. I really, I feel like if you're Spanish in WWE, it's exceptionally hard, because, and not just WWE, TNA has done the same thing, otherwise.
Yeah.
But once they give you that kind of character or that limitation, it's tough.
Yeah. And I will add this, and I do know you've worked with him. I do like Carlito. I think Carlito's great.
Oh, yeah.
I've just never been entertained by his brothers. They haven't done too much for me. What else you got?
And then the last thing is the WWE is working on an Owen Hart documentary. Widow is not thrilled.
Well, originally when it got posted, which was part of the interest of the story to me in general, was that Martha did approve. And they said that's why the DVD got to go. And that, to me, was the more exciting part.
Right.
Wasn't just the idea that we were getting an Owen DVD. It was like, oh, my God, Martha's cool with it. I guess we're turning a new page. That was all false.
Yeah.
She didn't approve of it, still doesn't approve of it. And I assume we're still getting the DVD.
Oh, yeah.
But the news has just come out that Martha had absolutely nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I actually, of all the things we've talked about, this is one of the ones that really stands dear to me because Owen Hart is one of my biggest influences. There's a lot of guys that I really look to that stand out to me. Owen Hart, Alex Shelley, Dean Malenko.
That's surprising to me, Alex Shelley. I wouldn't have thought
I
that.
am fascinated with his in-ring style. Every time I'm around him, I ask him as many questions as I can. I've only trained with him on like 1 or 2 occasions, but I've seen him at shows. I would love to see him on TV, but just he's there's just something about his style and his uniqueness and his versatility.
Fast.
Yeah, oh yeah. But
did you see
from
his
a technical
match with
standpoint
Omega,
too?
the New Japan match? So good.
Oh, if you guys ever have the chance and you can look it up, look up one of the seasons. I think it's Best of the Best 4. Alex Shelley and Bobby Quance, who used to be from PWG, like PWG's very early days. One of the most insanely good technical matches that incorporates high flying. That everything is logistically placed and it just flows like so well. But I'm sorry. Back to the Owen thing. Did you guys read Bret Hart's book?
I did.
You
Yes,
did read
I
his
did not.
book, so you're familiar with everything that happened on the Owen standpoint, from Martha and the lawyers and the
Yes.
sisters calling the lawyer and sending over copies.
I like you have Owen as an inspiration as a worker. For me, for that situation, I have a very strong opinion. Obviously, I love Owen. Could watch him all day. But I do have my thoughts on how that all transpired.
Yeah, like the thing with her saying no, it bothers me because I can understand from a family standpoint. You've lost your husband, you've lost your soulmate, your best friend, and your family, and has fucked with you now. And I don't even think it was about the amount of money that they took away from her, but the fact that there was going to be a justification and ends to the means after all the court cases. And she's bitter because her family's been around the wrestling business for so long. On the other end of it, I think it's kind of a selfish thing because Owen loved wrestling. He loved performing. He loved everything that he did. And for her to limit the wrestling universe's, because think about how many more fans would know of Owen Hart. Because now there's an entire fan base who has no idea who the guy is.
That's true.
And I think it's, in all fairness, for what he loved and for his name to be spread, that there should be no limitation. Just let the past be the past and be over it. Fighting with Vince is, what's it going to do? Tie your ass up in court more? There's no sense in it. They're still going to, like you said, they're going to release this thing anyway.
Yeah.
So why even go public? Why interview? Why do this? I don't know.
I think the only thing that gives the whole argument a strong curve in the other direction, which is kind of my take on it, but this is a whole nother hour episode in itself, is if it was truly an accident.
Yeah.
Yes.
I personally, this is just my own opinion. This isn't, stating your opinion on it or anybody else's opinion, just fully mine. I've never believed it was an accident. And that completely changes everything because then I feel like Martha would have a much bigger reason to never work with those people ever again.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
that's a whole different.
Yeah, if it can be proved without any
Right, and it
roadblock,
didn't
then absolutely
legally,
I would totally
so-
understand.
Yeah.
That was a lot of news.
I'm not done. Well, speaking on the Canadian thing, Chris Jericho, 2 pieces of news on him is that he is returning to the WWE. He's only doing live events, no televised events. And he's returning to be the co-host of Tough Enough with Renee Young, with a panel that's also going to include Hulk Hogan, Daniel Bryan, and Paige. I'm a huge Chris Jericho fan. I don't know
Oh, absolutely.
how
Right.
obsessed you guys are, but I'm
I'm
pretty
not
obsessed.
obsessed with Chris Jericho. I enjoy Chris Jericho.
security number.
yeah.
I mean, I like Chris Jericho. I think he's very entertaining on the mic, and he puts on great matches. I don't know. For a while, he had that ponytail on the top, and that really bothered me for a really long time. I like the shorter hair look. I like this Chris Jericho, even though all of his better stuff was way earlier.
Japan and ECW.
Yeah.
But let's not forget, Chris Jericho also helped create the greatest wrestling character of all time.
Ralphus?
Ralphus.
Yeah,
Yes.
I knew that. If that's where you were going, I'm right
Yes.
with you. But actually, we don't have to talk too much about Jericho, and I know we're eating up a lot of time, but since we're talking about the Tough Enough show, do you want to bring up your audition tapes?
Oh, the ones that I made.
Yeah.
They honestly, they
Give it a
weren't
shot.
even really audition tapes. It
Right.
was just kind of one of the things that popped my friends. You know, it's very much the American Idol of wrestling, and you know, good for guys. You know, if guys are serious and a lot of indie workers are serious about doing it, then cool, good for you. And then you know, you hear a lot of rumors through the grapevine that they already picked out their handful of guys,
I
and this
figure
was
it's
just for
pretty-
shits and
yeah.
giggles.
Yeah.
And you know, if that's true too, then good for those guys that got selected.
Right.
I just watch it from a fan standpoint. It's one of those things where, you know, the original one, I just don't, you know, you cannot create somebody with no wrestling experience into a superstar in a matter of 4 months. It's not possible.
It's just for the TV show, basically.
Yeah, just for the TV show. I think it'd be awesome if they turned it around on itself and said, we're going to train you to be an NXT superstar.
Right.
I think that would be exceptional. And
That's true.
If
Or
they
even
made
just the
like-
Performance Center.
Yeah.
You might not go
Yeah.
to NXT TV, but you will be, you know, the Performance Center contract.
Because
you
think
know?
about how much more on the outside of that is it pushes NXT as something more premier, which in
Right.
turn pushes Raw and SmackDown as something more premier.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
I never even thought of that.
That makes a lot more sense.
And since it's on the topic of Tough Enough, last news item I have is, I don't have too much about it, but I also wanted to get your take on it to see if you had any feelings. Bill Demott finally spoke for the first time
yeah.
since being fired. And I didn't fully understand everything he said, but it was basically along the lines of he thinks millennials... He pretty much blames the millennial generation and thinks that we are kind of very entitled.
This sums up the whole what he said. You blame the coach, not the quarterback. He's saying that, you know, you blame him for doing all these things, people not succeeding, people getting hurt, and it's like you never blame the guy actually out there doing it.
Well, yeah, it's tough too because I've seen a lot. Are you guys familiar with PWS, Pro Wrestling Syndicate?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, so one of the guys there, Kevin Matthews.
I've heard the name. I can't picture the face right now, but...
Yeah, he's one of their more premier guys, former world heavyweight champ. He's pretty much done anything and everything PWS, and he kind of helps run the show there. He was in developmental years ago, around one of the first times that Bill was on, and he's shown, the guy has shown evidence and proof of what Bill has done, having guys wrestle in diapers or naked in a ring, or you know,
The
or
jelly
girls,
donut?
yeah, the jelly donut, and just all this other stuff. Like, you can't, you know, you're going to have consequences. Your actions are going to have consequences. You cannot push people when they're hurt, and especially nowadays. And they have cameras on that place. And I think it's one of those things where I think that kind of helped the end justify the means as far as, you know, alleviating the curiosity of, is this guy really a dick, or is this, you know, or is he a good coach and this is just not going on? But
I'm sure there's things he did that were effective, but, I mean, there were a number of accusations that came out, but one of the ones, and you'll understand this better than anybody, that I don't think there's any excuse if the accusations are true that whenever somebody was training, if they didn't perform a body slam the proper way, he would have that person perform it the same improper way on one of the other people training.
yeah,
Almost
to
purposely
send a
injuring them. And
message,
I,
yeah, it's-
again, not being anywhere inside the business, I do at least know that you're supposed to, the ring is supposed to be a safe place. You know what I mean?
it's stupidity, and I honestly feel like, and like I said, I can only judge from what I know and what I've seen, and I really feel like the guy has an ego. You know, I've been to wrestling schools where you get pushed to your limits, and there's guys that do things. I don't want to say they're questionable, you know, but I've, you know, and a lot of people have heard horror stories about Taz too. But as a wrestler, if you're in a place, and you don't have the option of saying, no, I'm uncomfortable with doing that, then that person who's training you should not be training. Period. Whether you're a guy
Exactly.
like Bill Demott, who's been a mid-card TV star for, you know, for both leagues kind of thing, it doesn't make a difference. This is the human body. This is the only body you have. And if you're going to put somebody else's body on the line for your own shits and giggles, you have no place being in the most premier, you know, wrestling organization there is. It's just...
Exactly. I finally finished all my news, Andy. That's all I got.
That's 1 hour.
Yeah. Should we do our chops and pops now, or should we save it for part 2?
I don't have a whole lot to say about both of them for me.
Okay. Yeah, I could just name mine.
I could blow them off real quick and then.
Go for it.
All right.
We need the sound bites though.
We do. No, we are. We need the sound bite. We're gonna get them.
I'd really like Vinny to hear our Jesus too, because.
Do you want to do a Jesus?
Jesus.
Jesus!
You have to have.
I love that
Jesus.
man. I love that man.
How could you not?
We'll get into some good Zandig stories here in a little bit.
All right,
Awesome.
cool.
All right, so we're gonna start with chops because.
That was the big show.
That was Big
chopping
Show
the
chops.
crap out of somebody.
Big hand, big chop.
I hope I never have to endure that.
Right? Don't
Well,
know.
he has have another 10 years in WWE, so.
Ugh.
So my chop goes to me. I'm chopping myself
Why?
for being so good at choosing people that keep getting hurt,
Oh.
and everybody's hurt. Everybody that I enjoy watching, Hideo being hurt, Zayn being hurt, Bryan being hurt, even Riley being hurt. I find him entertaining in some sort of I don't know if it's like you watch a car crash and you're like, everyone stops to look at it kind of thing with Riley. But I like his music. That's why I like him. I don't know. It's a good tune. I don't know. He's so smiley in those videos, man. But I'm just so mad at myself because I feel like every time I start to get behind somebody, I followed Bryan for a year, since basically he lost to Sheamus in 19 seconds. I was like, that's the guy I want to follow. That guy. Something about him. I like him. And then watching him go through everything and then get to the championship, get it at WrestleMania 30, and then nope, gone. And then I was like, all right, well, who am I gonna follow? And then I started watching NXT, and I'm like, I like this Sami Zayn guy. I watched him lose to Cesaro. I'm like, I'm gonna follow him. No, now he finally wins. Owens comes in and just knocks him out for a month, and it's like, all right, well, I know that's the story, but then now he's actually hurt. So
Stop liking people.
I'm just gonna
You're
like John
jinxing
Cena.
it.
I'm just gonna like John Cena from now on. That's what's gonna happen, and now John Cena's gonna go out with something. So I don't know what.
You're gonna cost the WWE millions of dollars.
Thanks a lot, Andy.
I'm sorry. So that's my chop. It's me. I'm chopping myself.
Vinny, do you have a chop?
Yeah, seeing as we just discussed it here a few minutes ago, I'm gonna go ahead and chop WWE for. I feel like they're incorporating Hulk Hogan and all these superstars onto Tough Enough. It's overkill. I really feel like the focus of something like Tough Enough, and I kind of shared my idea of what they should do with it. Should be that platform. It should always be about progression. And to go even back further, what we talked about, this WWE is really understanding that just enough puppet master and pulling the behind the scenes thing. What does Hulk Hogan have to do to offer Tough Enough? Hulk Hogan's there to shill himself and shill the network.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Paige is there to shill the divas. I get that. I really feel like that show should be honestly about progression and nothing else.
That's a fair point.
Mm-hmm.
My chop of the week. If I was being super serious about it, I would give it to obviously Brandon Hoffman, who was the 20-year-old with the child. But to not make it that dark,
Right.
I'm gonna give my chop of the week to Stardust for scaring R-Truth with spiders. That was too much for me.
It's too much.
Yeah.
It's too spoopy.
Yeah.
That would be an
can't.
awesome sound, but I crack up every time. I hate spiders.
That was. I mean, it's probably the best thing they've done incorporating spiders with R-Truth, but that's too much for me. All right, pop of the week.
Pop of the week. Man, we are just going right through this. This is gonna be loud in your headphones. Just so. Ah, yes.
Very loud.
Hockey fans, those crazy sons of bitches. So, everyone's gonna say their pop is Sami Zayn on Raw.
Not me.
Oh, okay.
What's is that your pop?
Yeah, actually, I was gonna go on a rant about how it was so cool, and damn it, it actually is. Damn it, it was really cool. It was really, really cool. He kicked out of an AA. How many people can say that they kicked out of an AA?
That's true.
Not a lot.
And watching it live, I kind of thought that was called on the fly because Sami Zayn, and I never really consider somebody when they're trying to not reverse, but get out of a move when they try to land on their feet instead of taking the bump.
Right.
That if they don't perfectly land on their feet, I don't consider that really a botch if you're looking at it as a real fight. You know what I mean?
I'm on the fence about that because I've seen Sami Zayn do it now, and then Punk did it, in the Money in the Bank.
That was exactly
and
what
I
I
was
just
like,
thinking of. Because
it kind of looks like you just goofy fell on your ass, dude.
See, but I think of it as like if it was a real fight, he's just trying to squirm out of the move, and it's not
Yes.
necessarily a choreographed dance where landing on your feet is the perfection of it. He's just trying to get the hell out of there.
And
you know what I mean?
that's what as wrestlers, will appreciate more. And I feel like, people lose sight of that, especially a lot of today's workers. Like, give us less choreographed, give us more. Oh my God, I'm in there. A heel should look like a cheap son of a bitch who's gonna win a fight any way he can, and a baby face is gonna be a guy who's in there to fight. And I'm gonna, keep going down. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
But I feel like the reason why he kicked out of the AA was because first he tried to land it on his feet, but he pretty much took the AA and stood up and kept moving. So Cena was like, all right, screw it. If he just looks like he can get up from an AA, we're at least going to make that happen in the match. But I don't know. Do you have a pop of the week?
I got a tie. I'm gonna share it with the Sami Zayn on Raw. Just going back to how long I followed Sami, and I also on SmackDown, I believe Eric Rowan kind of teased rejoining Harper. I really hope they go in that direction. I really hope Bray carries that momentum off of the angle with Taker for Mania. I think splitting them up was one of the worst things that they could have did. I felt like it was way too early. And I feel like they essentially should have let the fans, not even them, dictate it and turn them babyface. So I really hope that's the direction that they go in with that.
Yeah. And my pop of the week, you thought it was going to be Sami Zayn.
I did.
But I'm
I
not
really
doing
did.
Sami Zayn. It's actually Dean Ambrose getting the #1 contender spot.
I'm upset we didn't talk about that.
Yeah, well, it was announced that night. It wasn't anything we knew ahead of time. I had my doubts. I've been dying to see a legitimate match between Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins since their feud ended back last fall, and we finally got it. Like, it was a legit match, even if there was interference at the end. We got, I don't even know how long. It was somewhere between 15, 20 minutes. It was a good match. And I was legitimately surprised that they're giving Ambrose this opportunity. Especially surprised they altered the main event, because I thought that was set in stone. But I'm just happy. This is Dean Ambrose's first world title shot on a pay-per-view.
He's going to eat that pin. It's going to be him.
It's not going to be Reigns.
He's going to eat that pin.
I think Seth is going to retain.
He's going to eat that pin.
Damn, I didn't even think of that.
I was so excited when I heard it. I'm like, yeah, Dean. Then I'm like, oh, no. Oh, no. Because you're going to have, Randy and Reigns are probably going to be fighting, and then he's going to probably... Because he's not doing the curb stomp anymore, so I don't know what his finisher is going to be.
I don't think he's settled on anything yet.
I kind of like him kind of stealing finishers. I like that he did the SKO, the Seth Rollins KO. I like that he's using other people's finishers. I think that's a good move, and it would be cool because the one move he tried to pass off as his finisher kind of looked like Dirty Deeds. I think it would be cool to actually hit Ambrose with the Dirty Deeds.
Yeah.
I can see it.
How long ago was it? I'm trying to remember. He's trying to keep up with TV when they took away the headlock driver and gave him the double arm DDT.
I want to say it was probably right at the end of 2014.
2014,
somewhere around there. I like it just because his whole history with Mick Foley, how that was originally going to be his debut. That I feel like doing the double arm DDT is kind of like the tribute to that.
Yeah.
You know, I am upset though that there's no more curb stomp. That was awesome, but
just for the WrestleMania moment, that was
you know
coolest
what?
thing ever.
Greatest RKO of all time. But yeah, should we wrap things up and then we'll do part 2?
It does seem we're not even going to do a false finish because we're so deep in this right now. So yeah, that actually is it for us here at Chops and Pops. I didn't even get to use my new sound clip, but I'm kind of upset about it.
Play it.
I
wanna hear
almost
it.
feel that this sound, that me not using it is
Unacceptable!
Who the hell is that?
It's from Adventure Time.
Oh.
It's Lemon Grab.
Can we get one Machiavelli before the show
We
ends?
can't get a Machiavelli because we didn't talk about the Brass Ring Club. Because I love that so much. Just because those are great. Thank you guys for listening so much.
Listen to
Please
part 2.
look on the bottom. There's a subscribe button. And stay tuned for part 2. I am Andy. Check me out on Twitter at YDNAGIACCONE. I tweet stuff sometimes. Not so much lately, but hey, you never know.
And I'm Shane. And I don't want to talk to you on the internet.
Hey. So, thank you guys for listening, and Stay classy.
What does everybody want?